Hi there. Welcome to Together for Digital Missions. My name is Erica.
And I'm Jonah.
And today we're going to have a conversation with Russ Martin and Liam Savage on connecting people to Jesus through our phones. Many of us during the pandemic have felt stuck when it comes to living out our lives as followers of Jesus and helping people come to know him. That's why we're talking about pathways forward during this time of being locked in our homes and how we still have everything we need to connect with people online.
Okay, so everybody, before we jump in, a couple notes for you is that we would love to invite you to interact with us during the conversation. So you can send in your questions anytime in the comments, and we've posted the link in the comments so that you can follow if you want to display your name on screen while we answer your questions. So you can write in anytime, and we really want this to be an interactive discussion, so just go for it. And additionally, all of the resources mentioned today will be available on the Indigenous website, which you can check right now if you'd like at indigenous.org/resources. Yeah, so I'm so excited to see what God does for us together to be a part of his work in the world. Okay, Erica, I'm just, so excited tonight. So we're gonna dive into a time of insightful conversation. So ready your comfortable chairs and refreshments as we talk about how we are navigating through this new normal as a church in this digital generation. So it's gonna be about a talk about purpose and path where God leads us. So we are joined by one of Indigenous co-founders, Russ Martin, and the Director of Innovation at One Hope, and also one of the global leads of Indigenous Global, Liam Savage. So without further ado, I'm gonna welcome them with silence first. And welcome, Liam and Russ.
Hey guys. Hey everyone.
Hey Liam, looking sharp.
Hey Russ, you too. Nice t-shirt.
Yeah, representing my home and native land. Go Blue Jays.
Nice. Canadians are known for their casualness, I've heard.
Yes, and we often apologize for that as well.
Don't worry about it. I'm known for wearing suits, but it's not an American thing. Don't worry.
That's so awesome. Well, we are going to ask both of you about Indigenous in a moment, but before we do that, could you share a little bit about how you decided to co-found and get involved with Indigenous?
Yeah, the story goes back all the way to 2013, where in my day job as a missionary with Crew, we were kind of wondering what the future of our digital strategies team and network was. And we used to host this event every 2 years that was sort of an internal conference. And as we were asking ourselves, are we going to have this conference again? We said, you know what if instead of doing an internal conference for our own organization, we switched from kind of this internal model to more of a TEDx type model, where in cities all around the world, we would gather a community of people to talk about how we could bring Jesus where the message of Jesus is not, and involve the local body of Christ in lots of different locations. And so that was a really big pivot for us as an organization. And it actually inspired, in the next year, 2014, 5 different events on 5 continents, where we ran this Indigenous conference, and we called believers in, I think it was Amsterdam, Hong Kong, Waterloo, Canada, Panama City, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And we just said, hey, if you're interested in technology, if you're interested in digital, and you love Jesus, let's get together and talk about what this means. And at every event, we had a great turnout, and that was the birth of Indigenous.
Yeah, for me, I heard about Indigenous at one of those events, I think, and when I heard about it, so I was new to the role of innovation at One Hope, and when I heard about technology and the gospel and trying to take the gospel to the ends of the earth and using technology in powerful ways, I was like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. I need this. And so I wasn't a part of Indigenous at the time, but I was a fan. And so as the years went by, I got more and more involved. And now here I am on a live stream talking about it. So it's been awesome.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you guys are with us tonight and we can have this conversation together with everybody. And yeah, mind if I'm gonna just go greet our some of our viewers tonight, and you can also take some time to say hi to everybody. So there, we have some friends from Philippines, and we have some comments here. So yeah, so I just want to encourage everybody to just key in your comments here, and then we can just show them in this on screen. So yeah, I have been a part of Indigenous myself for like for 5 years already, and I'm quite curious to ask you guys, how did it how have you seen the mission of Indigenous shift and grow over the last 5 years? So yeah.
Well, I think when we initially started, we were just trying to find warm bodies. We were trying to find anyone that was remotely interested in digital or technology and also loved Jesus, and just try to figure out how do we get those people in the same room. One of the coolest experiences that I had was at the event in Addis Ababa, the first year, 2014, I think it was. We had like a hackathon at the conference, and there was a team of these really young students that was trying to program feature phones. Like, if you remember, like the Nokia phones, the ones that you could like only do texting on. Like, this is like when like BlackBerry was still out there, and they were trying to figure out, okay, how do we engage people with the gospel using feature phones? And so it was just this huge like experiment of like asking ourselves, what crazy ideas could we use to bring the gospel to people using this technology that we were still sort of trying to figure out. Like, it was like earlier smartphone kind of days, or when everyone still carried like a laptop. So yeah, that's one of my memories from earlier on. And then I think we kind of pivoted into a season of hosting hackathons all around the world. And I've actually been privileged. I've been, I think, to a hackathon in Waterloo, Canada, in Orlando, Florida, in Singapore, and in Australia. So I've gotten this really great picture of what hacking for Jesus all around the world looks like.
Yeah, I would say I've seen so that pivot towards technology and focusing on bringing together communities towards events where we can develop technology for the gospel. I think the next pivot that I'm seeing that we're in the middle of right now is how can we shift. So when you think about building new technology to empower people to share the gospel, that assumes that you have this massive group of Christians who are just ready to share their faith, and that if we just provided them with the right tools, that they would use those tools to share the gospel. And I think what we've found is that there's not actually a huge demand for people to share their faith online, that missions and evangelism and discipleship online is still a little bit of a foreign concept, less so now because of COVID. People are now much more interested in that. And so we're actually working towards how can we activate believers to share their faith through digital missions? How can we activate people to use the tools that have been built by the community and start giving a purpose to those hackathons and those communities around the world who have technologists and designers and artists who want to help people share their gospel? So that's, I think, one of the pieces that was missing before is that we're having hack events, but now we want to have a massive audience of people who can use the things that come out of those hack events.
That's great. And even, it makes me think about how a lot of people probably have a different thought when you hear the words digital missions. So I'd love to hear what do you mean when you say digital missions? What comes to your mind using those terms?
All right, Liam, you get to go first on this.
Excellent.
one.
I was wondering, I was like, are we just going to go first, you first every time, and then me second? But yeah, so digital missions to me, many people feel left out of God's call to the Great Commission. The Great Commission is something that all Christians know, that we're supposed to share the gospel. It's what the disciples did. It's what we read about in the New Testament. And it's we want to share that love and that faith, that forgiveness that Jesus offers. But many people feel like, okay, well, missions, that's something where I have to go to another country, maybe learn another language. I have to leave everything behind. I can't have a job. I can't have a family. And that's not true. If you have a phone, you can do missions. Imagine if someone were to knock on your door and say, hey, I heard you were a believer. I have some questions. I'm interested to know more about this God that you believe in. If you were to open your door to someone like that, you'd be really excited to share with them, to share your story, to talk to them about what you believe and why you believe it. But your phone is a door, and we can totally connect people to you, and we can connect people to the opportunity to share about their faith with people online. So when I think digital missions, I think how are we using technology that's available to us, that everyone has in their pocket, to empower them to share their story, to share the gospel through digital tools that have been made available. So evangelism and discipleship to people all over the world.
Yeah, a couple ways I think about this is in the early days, as the church grew and the gospel spread, the Apostle Paul used this new technology called a road. There was roads that were built by the Romans, and those roads actually enabled efficient travel to go from city to city and village to village. And Paul used those in the early spread of the gospel. And so I think of digital missions sort of as this new Roman road where we're using all the available digital channels, content, experience, technology. We're using those things in order to bring the gospel to new places and new spaces where it's not. That might be a high-rise condo building like I live at here in Singapore. That might be a rural village somewhere in the developing world. It might be a corporate boardroom, or it might be my dad's a truck driver. It might be to the truckers and my dad's trucker buddies. And so all of those places need the gospel. And I think, just like Liam said, we've all got these smartphones now, and we can use those to spread the gospel. And there's one of my buddies here where I live works for Nike, and Nike has this saying. They say, if you have a body, then you're an athlete. And it's this really sort of clever play on like making like everyone want to buy Nike, because who doesn't want to be an athlete? And Nike says, well, if you've got a body, then you're an athlete. And I think in the same way, the heart of Indigenous, just like Liam was saying, where many Christians feel powerless, is we say, that's just not, that should not be. There's something different that, especially in today's day and age, like if you can write a text message, if you can share a video on social media, then you can bring the gospel to places where it's never been before. It's really that easy, and God can use that. And so how can we inspire and equip and mobilize lots of different people towards that? That's what I think of when I think of digital missions.
Wow. So it's really making everybody, as long as you're a Christian, to really be able to share the gospel and become a digital missionary. Yeah. How about if you're going to summarize the overall mission of Indigenous and what problem it's trying to solve, what would that be?
Yeah, I would say, Indigenous is a Great Commission accelerator. We want to resource believers in the area of digital missions so that they can confidently tell others about Jesus and catalyze the spread of the gospel to where it's not. So I like this term, Great Commission accelerator. Like, the Great Commission is there, but we want to accelerate it with digital missions. Russ, I feel like maybe you want to add something.
Yeah, I'm just looking up a scripture here, Revelation 7:9. After this, I looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number, from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes with palm branches in their hands, crying out with a loud voice, salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. And I love that picture of heaven and people from all tribes and tongues and nations. And that's the problem that we're trying to solve in Indigenous, is that there are almost 8 billion people on the planet, and 2/3 of the people on the planet, or a little under 2/3, about 63%, I think it is, don't yet know or follow Jesus. And almost half of those don't even know someone who truly follows Jesus. And so this is like a really big problem. And a lot of those people actually live in 12 high population countries. And so as an Indigenous leadership team, we're saying this should not be. Like, we want more people worshiping before God. And so how can we help people who are powerless, who feel powerless in sharing their faith, to have simple, easy to use ways in the digital realm to bring the hope of Jesus to people who don't yet have it? So that's the problem.
Yeah. And we know it's not that people, that they want to keep, this relationship with Jesus to themselves, or what they've experienced with God and his love for them. It's not that they want to keep that from people, but what would you say are some of the barriers that Christians face in helping people come to know Jesus? And I just want to add, for anyone listening, if you you have an answer to this question or a thought, we'd love to hear that in the comments. Feel free to put in your response in the comments.
Yeah, I would say, just some of the hurdles. People feel awkward about sharing the gospel. Maybe they're not used to it. There's this sense of like, I don't know, that this is what I believe, but we have this sense of like, I need to be tolerant of what they believe, or maybe they would not like me to impose my beliefs on them, and they fear rejection. I think that's a common sense about sharing your faith and sharing the gospel. But I've seen so many times, especially in areas where they've never heard any, like Russ was saying, they don't have a relationship with anyone who is even a believer. They've never even gotten close to hearing the gospel. And, through some of our digital campaigns, digital evangelism tools and tools that we've seen working really well, in those conversations, someone, will share a piece of content about the gospel, and we'll be in a conversation with someone, and we'll say, what did you think about the video? Or what did you think about God being portrayed that way? And they might say, I wish that I could have a personal relationship with God. And you answer like, you can, and God loves you. And the next response is like, that's what I've always hoped and dreamed. Like, the gospel is a gift, and people don't have it. And so the fear of rejection for giving someone a gift, I think, should not exist. And if it's rejected, it's probably because it's not understood. But I think that maybe in your context or with your relationships, I know in an American context, it's received differently. And there's that sense of, I don't know if they will want this, or if they're going to feel comfortable with me sharing my beliefs with them. But I think in the majority of the world where people are completely unreached, that's not really the issue at all. And they're hungry for this knowledge that there is a God who loves them. So yeah, those are the barriers that I would say exist.
Yeah.
I think one that I know creeps into my heart is that I forget what Jesus has done for me, or I fail to see how that is making a difference in my life. And so when I don't live in light of that, it doesn't make me motivated to share with others, or I don't see that difference in my life. And so then I just sort of, everything like bleeds together, versus like when I can see and experience God's work in my life, and that despite all my shortcomings, despite my anger and getting upset at my kids and thinking bad thoughts about colleagues or whatever it is, that Jesus has come to redeem me and intersect all of that, and he loves me for who I am, and that I can be forgiven of my sin. That, I think, changes my outlook. So I think a lot of Christians often don't live in the light of that reality of all the goodness and grace that God has given to us. And so that makes it hard to feel like you can be a powerful witness.
Yeah. Yeah, I can really relate and really agree with all of those things. Gabriella shared, some feel it's only the job of pastors, teachers, and missionaries to share the gospel. Yeah, that's definitely, I've seen that to be
Mm.
true. And it kind of makes me also want to just follow up and ask, what do you see as some of the risks for if Christians don't find a way to break through those barriers? Like, what do you think will happen or will continue happening?
Mm. It's a good question. I think there's, for one, there's a profound joy in sharing life with someone. I think about the incredible life transformation that the gospel had in my life, and uh, just the sense of hope and peace, and the thought that um, this world is not all there is, that there is something beyond it, that there is a God who loves me, um, that there is that all of the negativity or all of the stress or evil that's in this world, that there's a God who has power over it and who is going to make things right, and who like that sense of peace that comes with that foundation that I can stand on in the midst of difficult times, like that's something that I want to share with everyone. And it's something that's tremendously valuable. So I think trying to keep that to myself, or feeling like it's someone else's responsibility to give that to other people, like we should be so overflowing with the sense of gratitude, and overwhelmed at the grace of God, that it just pours over into the lives of people around us. And so I think helping to equip people with the means for it to pour over, in the digital space, or even in their own personal lives, face-to-face tools to help them engage with others and share their faith. To me, I want to be that accelerator, that catalyst that helps them just take that next step. Because once you start, you find it's a lot easier, and you want to do it more, because you see that life transformation, you see that realization, that hope, that new reality dawning on them. And so I think you're missing out on that if you don't share that incredible joy of bringing life to someone, literally.
Yeah, I think if Christians can't, um, find a way to break through these barriers, it's a really sort of sad day for our culture, I think, because I believe that Christianity has the best and most relevant answers to the deepest, most fundamental questions of life, whether that's origin, meaning, morality, destiny, however you want to frame that. I think the Christian worldview is the most coherent and the one that makes the most sense and brings us the most hope in our world. And so, if Christians can't find a way to engage and talk with the people in their sphere of influence, then I think we're going to continue to see mental health challenges. We're going to continue to see marital and relational challenges. In different parts of the world, there's like lots of ethnic or racial tensions. It just looks different here in Singapore than where I used to live in America, than where I used to live in Canada. Those things all exist there, but and we're just going to keep fighting and fighting and fighting until we sort of begin to realize that no, there's actually like a peace that's transcends these differences because of what Jesus has done for us. So I think it's critical just for the flourishing of our city and our society to figure out a way to cut through this.
Yeah. And I think Leah might have said something about this, but how do you see Indigenous helping to address these barriers, or those barriers mentioned?
Yeah, so some of the we want to offer resources that are really practical, really easy first steps that someone can take to share their faith, to take that step of faith themselves and put themselves out there and offer this message of the gospel to others. So resources and tools, things that are things that have been developed out of the community, out of those hackathon events, out of partner organizations and ministries that are trying to solve the same problem. And the other thing is a community, a fellowship of believers, a group of people who want to do this mission with you, to encourage you, to champion you, to make digital missions a normal part of life. I think those are the two things that we want to provide that will help overcome this barriers, is the resources and the community of people who will champion you.
And God has given Indigenous this massive global network. So if you're in Hawassa, Ethiopia, or Iloilo, Philippines, or Buenos Aires, Argentina, we know like-minded people that are there. And so as Liam talked about, those resources that we want to make available, like there are, I don't know what the right adjective is, but there are relevant people trusting the Lord to make an impact in their city and in their community in those places. And so they can inspire and motivate and train and equip with sort of best in class tools, training, vision. And so that's really our vision, is that I guess we didn't talk about this in the origin story, but Indigenous comes from the fusion of two words, indigenous and digital. And so our heart is that there would be this indigenous presence, a relevant gospel witness all around the world. And so I think that relates as well.
Yeah, thanks, both of you. I was just thinking about how many times in the day I interact or learn something about another person in my sphere of influence. And, being here in my home, I don't necessarily see many other people face to face. But if I think about every name that I came across on Instagram or on YouTube, or just the plethora of places that I interact with digitally every day, it's just crazy to think now the amount of people that I have the opportunity to be learning about and curious and praying for and learning from and just interacting with. So I know that thinking about moving this into sort of a more personal realm kind of helps us think about applying it. I would love to hear from you an example of how getting equipped to reach people through digital means had an effect on your life, and how God has used you to interact with people and share his love with them.
Go for it, Russ.
All right, I'll take the lead this time.
I saw you on mute. I knew you wanted to.
Yeah, trying to beat you. So one of the tools that I've been using recently is an app called Mission Hub. And what I love about Mission Hub is that it gives me simple next steps to do with people in my sphere of influence. And I live in Singapore, which is in the heart of Asia. It's the financial center of Asia. I'm kind of embedded in like a expatriate community with lots of foreigners from all around the world who've come to do super important jobs here in Singapore. And from the world standard, they have everything the world could want. They have money, they can travel, but many of them are like miserable. And I've been trying to get to know different people at my condo, and I sometimes feel frustrated, or like our worlds are just kind of like so different, and it doesn't seem like there's common ground. And so one dimension of that is professional, one dimension of that is spiritual, there's cultural dimension. And so I'm just like constantly like, Lord, how do I even find common ground with these people? And the Lord has just really impressed on me in the last season that I need to be consistent in praying for the friends in my life, especially the men in my life. And so I've put all my friends into Mission Hub, and Mission Hub sort of says like, who do you want to reach out to? What's their name? Where are they at? And so I fill that in, and then it gives you some suggestions on what you can do. And one of the steps is pray. And in one sense, I feel like, man, I have no idea where to start with any of these guys. But the Lord is just impressing on me that, like, but you can pray. And so I've also been trying to grow my muscles and habits in prayer. And so Tuesday mornings, I try to get up before dawn and pray. And so I just like walk around the local park with my Mission Hub app and just praying what Mission Hub tells me to pray for these guys. And it's funny because sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to pray for these guys. Like, Lord, what scripture should I pray? I don't know. And then like Mission Hub is just there and it tells me what to pray. And so that's one of the things that God has been using in my life to help me reach out to people and realize that there's probably no one else in most of these guys' lives that is praying for them. And that's sort of my privilege and my call. And as I do that, trusting that the Lord will bring opportunities. There's a pool at our condo. And so the other day I was just sitting in the pool with one of the guys, and he was sort of saying he does this AI stuff and he has a PhD in machine learning. And but he's just like, yeah, but I have everything, but I'm not like super happy in life. And so it's like, oh, I see the Lord starting to open up opportunities that hopefully he'll use. So yeah, go Mission Hub.
Love it. That's a great story. Yeah, I think, Russ, you're getting at something really valuable there. I think, we often think about the digital space as giving us access to the whole world. And it's true, like on this stream, there could be 1,000 or 10,000 people watching. But while we have access, that doesn't necessarily mean we have influence. And if you're going to share the gospel with someone, you need to have a relationship with them, a foundation of trust and, that sense of comfort with the other person, that relationship is built over time. And I think relationships don't scale. And so while access scales in the digital space, relationship doesn't scale. And so when I think about the need for Indigenous and the need for every believer to take ownership of sharing the gospel, it's not some big complicated thing like, oh, I have to share the gospel with everyone in the whole world. It's like, no. You need to share the gospel with the 1 or 2 people who God has put on your heart, who you want to have a relationship with, who you want to share the gospel with, who you wouldn't have shared the gospel with or had the opportunity to share the gospel with otherwise. And so an example for me, like I love video games and I was playing video games, and there was a guy who we were in the same clan for like 2.5 years, just casual, idle chit chat. And we gradually built a relationship. And one time he said to me, he said, "What is life all about?" He's like, I'm in a trade school. Like, what am I doing? There's no satisfaction. I don't understand why I'm going through the motions of like getting a career. Do I buy a house? Like, I don't know what to do. And he would never have asked me that question if I hadn't been just intentional about building a friendship. And so I just want to say digital missions is not something that's difficult or challenging or overly complex. It's about making friends with people online and being prepared to share the gospel with them when the opportunity arises. So all of the tools, all of the things that we say, like, yes, you could go online and start sharing the gospel with random people tomorrow, but that's not really what evangelism and discipleship are about. It's about establishing a relationship and building that trust so that you can effectively have the opportunity to speak into their lives. And so just having that mindset, I think, will help make it seem less threatening. And like, we're not asking you to do something crazy. We just want you to have friends online who don't know Jesus and then share Jesus with them. I think about Voke as a really cool digital platform that was started at a hack event and then built out by another a partner. And Voke is about going on a faith journey with someone. And basically, you watch videos together and you have a chat about it. And you can talk about the content of the videos and say, like, what did you think about that? And they're not all like, here's the gospel, but it's questions about life, questions about meaning and purpose, questions about anything. And when you watch those videos, you can explain your answers to those things. Why do you believe what you believe? What do you think the purpose of life is? So I really love how socially appropriate that one is. And it was really interesting when COVID hit. and they had just released a feature for groups to be able to go through a series of videos together, and that was really powerful for churches who weren't able to do youth group anymore. They could now have their youth group online and go through Voc content together and still stay in touch. So anyways, those are my thoughts about how I've seen it in my life and some of the tools that I love.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in. I really appreciate what both of you shared about it being a personal and relational thing, because if God is living inside of us and he is personally guiding us, it only makes sense that, we take the same mindset. I just wanted to share a quick comment that we received from Reese or Russ, but she said, I also set time scrolling down my newsfeed and see the posts of my Facebook friends who express grief, loss, or low moments, and I personally message them and offer my availability should they need someone to listen to me, and include them in my evening prayers. I love that example of just so practically, showing up, being available to God, to be used in our friends' lives, and just taking the time to feel with people what they're feeling and learn and be curious and make ourselves available to them. So thanks for that example. That's really encouraging and inspiring to me.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, if you, I sometimes will ask non-believer friends to pray for me as well. And then that kind of puts them in a funny spot. They're like, pray for you? Sure, I'll pray for you. But yeah, I love it. You should definitely pray for people, or ask them if they need prayer. Because sometimes, even if they don't believe, they'll say, yeah, please pray for me. It's good.
I love, Erica, thanks for pulling that out. I love how Reese is just sort of like viewing the world with like a spiritual or her social feed with a Jesus lens or a spiritual lens, to say, wow, like I could never go visit 500 people, right now during lockdown, but there they are on social, and so many of them are hurting, and probably none of their other friends. My wife and I were just talking about this, like probably none of their other friends really care about them, but like, could I take 10 minutes to reach out? And that's bringing the gospel into a space where it's not empowered by digital. So that's cool.
Yeah, and you just made me think too, it's not about us like having it all together and showing up as the people who are gonna be the helper. It's like, sometimes I'm most, I think God really moves in my life as I just show up ready to relate to somebody else and what they're going through. And sometimes that's when I'm hurting, when I'm grieving, when I'm experiencing loss, and being able to go through that together and seek the Lord together for how he's going to meet us in that. So really appreciate what both of you shared.
Yeah, this is really a powerful moment for us, sharing all these experiences together and how the Lord has been bringing people into our feed or like into our DMs. So I know you guys who are watching us right now have a lot of thoughts and maybe questions. So I would like to invite you to put your questions or comments here in our thread below, and Russ and Liam will be able to pick a few to answer. So these could be thoughts and questions about making disciples in the digital realm. So yeah, maybe as you were continuing to think about putting your questions or thoughts there, maybe Erica, we can go back to it later.
Yeah, so we can come back to it in a minute if you want to just think as we chat. I would love to hear, Liam and Russ, what are some next steps that we can take in growing to engage people in the digital sphere?
Russ, do you want to go? Do you want me to go?
Go for it.
All right. I think some of the first things that I would say are you should start by just making friends. Like, we have this Facebook group, and that's primarily where we want to start getting people connected to others and sharing ideas that work. So for instance, things like vocab and Mission Hub that we talked about, like those are two, but there's dozens of really helpful resources and tools that might be better for your context or your language or your region. And so just start making friends in this community and talking about the problems you're trying to solve or the tools that you're looking for, and see what people recommend, see what opportunities come up. There's resources that we have on the Indigenous page, and if there's something that you want or that you're working on that doesn't exist or that no one knows anything about, like, we can take that to the community of people who are wanting to develop things, and the partners who want to make new tools and new resources, and let's try to fill in those gaps. So if there's I saw Nicholas said, wow, I'm in a team building an app for that. I think when I was talking about Vogue, it's like, hey, let's connect you to the Vogue team, and let's help you make that relationship, and maybe you can work on what they're working on and make it more, appropriate for the context that you're working on. So anyways, I would just say, make friends, start finding out what's out there, what's useful, and applying it.
Yeah, I don't have much else to add besides Jeremy on our team recently made a really great video that's on our YouTube channel called Intro to Digital Missions, and it's kind of along the same lines of this conversation of, hey, I'm a everyday follower of Jesus. How can I make a difference in this world with the relationships and the tools and the phone that God has given me? And so just go to our YouTube page, youtube.com/Indigenous Media, and check out that video. And there's lots of really great how-tos just in terms of how to get started.
Yeah, you guys are not alone in this. Like, there's so much available. There's so many people who are thinking about this with you. And so, yeah, just feeling like, realizing that if anything that we've shared today about connecting with people digitally, about sharing the gospel online, if that excites you, like, it excites a lot of people too. And so just make some friends with those people, learn and get connected, because there's probably people near you that you don't know who are also interested in this, and there's probably friends to be made on the other side of the world too, if that's interesting to you.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of making friends on the other side of the world, we heard that there is a global hackathon that's going to be happening soon that Indigenous is hosting. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure, I can say a little bit about that. So in 60 cities next month, all around the world, I think 60 cities in 37 countries or something like that, we are gathering Christians with talent. You can come too if you don't have talent, but with people that want to make, break, hack, build, create things in the digital space that's going to help people know and experience and follow Jesus. And so just like we've been talking about today, there's people all around the world that have yet to know or follow Jesus, and we're trying to help Christians all around the world help those people know and follow Jesus. But for those Christians to have tools like Vogue, like Mission Hub, like the Yes He Is app, like the God Tools app, like the Jesus Film app, and there's all the other things that are mentioned on our website. We need Christians with talent that can code, that can do videography, that can do animation, that can do UX, that can do copywriting, storyboarding, all those things. And so we're calling those people together in 60 cities around the world next month so that they can build the tools and resources and experiences that the everyday Christians, just like the four of us, on the stream today, can use to impact our sphere of influence.
Yeah, I would just add to that, it's a powerful thing. Like, there's so much potential in the kingdom, in the body of Christ, in everyone who's a part of their church. And a lot of times churches don't have opportunities for, if there's someone who works at Facebook or Google or Apple in their congregation, like, many times there's not very many opportunities for them to use their skills for the church. And so what I love about Hack is, like, we invite those people and say, like, hey, there's mission problems, there's digital problems that the church wants to solve, and we would love you to help us solve those with your expertise. And so, yeah, like Russ was saying, if you're creative, if you've got time and you want to solve some problems, like, meet some other people who also want to solve some problems, and help equip the rest of us to do something cool online, to share our faith, to help to help people encounter God in ways that are just beyond anything that's available now. Like I want Google to be jealous of the things that we're doing. Like I want Facebook to say like, man, how are they getting engagement like that? And it's like, we can totally make amazing things and make the rest of the world jealous and give them something to aspire to. So that's what I want to see happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking about the first time I went to a hackathon, and I was kind of wondering, I don't know what talent I have here. I'm not a coder, I'm not a graphic designer, but I am an ideator. I love brainstorming. I love just strategically thinking about new ways to solve problems. So even if you think, oh, I'm not sure that I have this specific computer or technological digital talent, there's probably still a space for you, just as we think as followers of Jesus and people who have the Holy Spirit together in a place to think about tackling some of these issues. So I just want to encourage you in that. Looks like we have a question. Jonah, I don't know if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, personally, we've got a question from Mikhail. He asks, are there any books, channels, or podcasts focused on digital missions if you want to know deeper?
Yeah, so Indigenous has a few things that we make our resources. I think we've been publishing a few videos on YouTube recently to talk about that. We've been doing a few webinars to share. It's actually on our list of things to think about if we should create a regular podcast to talk about digital missions. One thing to keep an eye out for in the future, if you're interested in, I want to make something called the Digital Mission Brief, and we've had a couple of options or a couple of test runs of it. But basically, it's a regular gathering of people who are focused on digital missions and learning from one another and sharing the projects and opportunities that they're working on and how we can learn from one another. But yeah, so we have a YouTube channel. We regularly produce content there. Russ, what am I forgetting?
So Faith Tech, who's our friends and partners, and they have a presence around the world and do some similar things. They have a great resource on their website that talks about, I think it's like the top 10 podcasts kind of in the whole like technology. It's a little more technology and faith, which I would say is slightly different than digital missions, even though there is overlap. So that's I would definitely I can try to find the link and put in the chat, but that is definitely one thing that I would check out as well.
Yeah, we love Faith Tech. Those guys are so awesome. I saw Nicholas was like, "Yay, Faith Tech!" That's how I feel too. So we love what they do, and we work together a lot.
It just made me think of, I haven't read this book yet, but I just heard about From Social Media to Social Ministry by Nona Jones, she works for Facebook, and she's kind of the head of, I think, their faith communities section of Facebook. Again, I haven't read her book yet, but it's one that I'm planning to read soon and just learn more about that perspective coming from someone who works for social network Facebook.
Yeah, her she did a talk at the Global Leadership Summit, and it was outstanding. I think it's behind a paywall, but if you can figure out a way to get around the paywall, Nona Jones Global Leadership Summit, incredible talk, and it's again along the lines of what we're talking about here of like the need to connect with people over just having millions of people in your feed. So yeah, she's awesome.
That's good. I saw Matthew Tan asked, he forgot to mention anyone from Singapore. So Russ is in Singapore, and there actually is a really strong community in Singapore. So we should get you connected to that group. They have regular meetups, I think, despite COVID. I'm not sure how much they're meeting right now with COVID, but yeah, there's a really strong group in Singapore who are focused on missions, who meet regularly.
He also asked about online mentoring on TMM or discipleship.
What does TMM stand for? I feel like it's media missions, or
Stands for the Mentor Ministry, and so it's a product from the Power to Change digital team in Canada.
right.
And so there's if you just go to tmm.io, you can actually sign up to receive however many emails you want a week from people that are writing in with questions about Christianity, looking for hope. I try to do one email a week actually through that platform, and have met some interesting people and had some interesting conversations through that. So yeah, that's another way you can sort of, I guess, meet. It's like meeting strangers online and telling them about Jesus, but the strangers come to you. So
Nice. That's awesome.
it's probably not the marketing that TMM would want me to be sharing. So sorry to Kelly and my friends at TMM. They won't. I should read the marketing copy a little better.
Well, it kind of makes sense to me, though, because everyone was a stranger to us at some point in building a relationship and a friendship. So even if they're a stranger right now, when you get an email, it's an opportunity to build a relationship with someone who's open and ready. Just like if you were to go to the beach or a park, you know, if you're going to your grocery store, whatever it is, people are. We were all strangers. Us four were strangers at one point, and we've friendships. So that's great. Yep. Looks like we have another question from Gabriella. Jonah, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, she asks, how can we merge serving our communities with digital missions? For example, when a disaster occurs, Facebook releases notifications and fundraising options, etc. It would be great to see that happen if it already doesn't. Yeah. What are your thoughts about that, guys?
So this is the type of thing that we want to work on at like our hackathons. Again, the collaborators for Kingdom Impact, then serving the rest of us that can use the tools to have impact. And I know just during COVID, the Faith Tech Network actually sponsored a hackathon like right in the heat of COVID in the States. And they were doing this kind of thing of like, how do we crowdsource different responses to, do people need meals? Do they need check-ins? Do they need supplies? So we'd love to hear, Gabriella, your ideas or ideas for other people. And that's where we actually run a Slack community where people can share those ideas and get together and work on them as well.
Yeah, you can search Kingdom Builders. It's a Slack community, and you can be able to join conversations there. And are we up for our last question, I guess, before we end?
Yeah, I was just going to share. Sorry, I was just going to share related to that hack. covidhack.devpost.com is where they posted the information about the hack that happened. So I don't know. I don't know, Gabriella, if they might have some tools that came out of that, but they do have their projects listed there. Sorry. Yeah,
thanks. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, and last question, I think, Ross, what are some challenges you've faced in terms of people's acceptance of digital missions?
It's a good question. You know, I think there's a lot of times people don't like doing new things. Organizations in particular, like churches or nonprofits or partners, like new is always hard because it's not what you're comfortable doing. It's not what you're familiar with. It's not what you've like optimized your business or your life to do. And so when we think about digital missions, a lot of times it's like, it's too much newness. I think what I've seen though with COVID is that there's been this tremendous need to do something new as people can't gather in person anymore. And so if you can't travel to do missions, if you can't invite people into your church to do evangelism and discipleship, you have to look outside that. And so I'm actually thankful for COVID in some ways, that it's been a blessing to help the church desire to do things online, rather than potentially having to to wait like 3 or 5 years for them to like warm up to the idea. It's like it required an immediate change. And so I'm actually really hopeful that some of the resistances or challenges that we faced in the past might be a lot easier to overcome now that people realize how powerful engaging with people online can really be.
Thanks, Liam.
Yeah.
Well,
all right. So yeah, it's I really learned a lot from this conversation, and I know 55 minutes it's been so fast for me. So thank you so much, Russ and Liam, for sharing with us your time and these very precious thoughts and conversations and stories. Again, everyone, you can access the resources on ndt.us/resource. Take note there's no S, and we specifically encourage you to check out the Intro to Digital Missions video on our YouTube channel or through Indigitus/pulse-get started. You can find it there in our comments as Indigitus page is sharing these with us. And if you are in need of a specific kind of resource, we'd love to help. You can write us at mail@indigitus.org and we will get back to you. Also, a couple of things before we let you go. Everyone, we'd like to invite you to join us in creating some of these resources in our Hack 2020. So you can also find these resources or these links in our comments below. So, yeah.
This conversation was hosted by Indigenous. If you would like to join our community of people around the world who are using technology to advance the mission of Jesus, we want to invite you to join us on the Indigenous group on Facebook. You will have access to more resources and encouraging stories, as well as being able to share your own. So thank you for joining us. We know God will use you as you take steps. Your next steps. We hope to see you again. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. See you.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.